Hello everyone, a very good morning to you all. Hopefully you all are staying home and staying safe. As promised, I am back with a small series of videos on contract drafting. Now, before I move on in this series and I bring about videos regarding how to draft a contract, I think you should understand the first step which is involved in contract drafting, which is the questions to ask before you start drafting a contract. Now, let us take a hypothetical situation. You are an in-house counsel and you are supposed to draft or review a contract for your company. Now, what should be your first steps? As a layman, you would think that you need to take a template off the internet, read through the clauses, and then start drafting the contract. Or if you are reviewing a contract, then maybe see how such similar contracts are drafted over the internet or from some template, and then see if this contract is in harmony with that. Well, not really. You should start with asking questions from your relevant stakeholder. For example, you may get a commercial procurement contract from the procurement team, or maybe a software contract or a SaaS contract, as we say, from your IT team. Now, what you need to know is what is the information which they want you to capture in the contract, because every contract needs to be customized according to the client's needs. So the first step which you should take before you sit down to draft a contract would be to ask the relevant or the pertinent questions from the stakeholder or the client for whom you are drafting or reviewing a contract. Now, the first question that everybody should ask is, what is the scope or the purpose or the aim of the contract? Now, what does the contract aim to achieve? For instance, if you are entering into a SaaS contract, now what is the purpose behind it? Why do you want to give your software as a service to someone? What is the purpose? What are you aiming to achieve out of this contract? That is something which you need to know initially at the very beginning, so that is the essence of the contract. The purpose of a contract would actually be the essence of the contract, and you need to capture that. So you need to understand the purpose or the aim which the contract seeks to achieve. Now, the second is finer details. Now, for example, if you were given an order to deliver chairs to someone, an opposite party. Now, you will think it's a simple contract for delivery of chairs. But no, you need to understand whether the chairs would be of plastic, of metal, whether these chairs are to be delivered in a particular condition, whether these chairs are to be assembled, whether they are the components of chairs which need to be delivered, what is the purpose for which such chairs are being delivered, etc. Apart from that, you also need to know what documents have been signed, or what has been basically the origination of the contract since its birth. For example, before you enter into a contract, your relevant stakeholder, for example, your commercial procurement department, is going to go to the vendor. They're going to sit down and they're going to have talks regarding what they want, what the vendor can supply, what are the specifications of the supply, etc. You need to know all these things, and you need to capture these little fine details in the contract. Now, nature of goods or services. You need to know what is the nature of goods or services being delivered. For instance, if the contract is for delivery of a perishable item, that needs to be time sensitive. There need to be other clauses built in it in order to protect the fact that it's a perishable item, and if there's a delay in delivery, the contract may not achieve its purpose. So you need to know the nature of goods and services before you sit down to draft the contract, because that would keep in your mind the target audience, the aim you want to achieve, and then you would actually put such clauses in the contract, and you would tailor the contract according to the needs of the client. Now, the next question which you should ask is with regard to payment. Now, again, one may think that payment is as simple as I agree to deliver you 100 chairs and you agree to pay me INR 2,000 for that. Not really, because a payment clause in itself would have a lot of modalities which you would want to cover. The first thing which you need to ask with regard to payment is the mode of payment. Now, the payment can be made through checks, payment can be made through an electronic transfer, payment can be made in cash. You need to know what exactly do you need to cover. For example, if you draft a very simple clause, like I agree to supply you 100 chairs, you are going to pay me 1,000 rupees for that. Now, later on, maybe the person gives you a check and the check bounces. And then you would be like, no, this is not how I wanted my payment. Now, you do not want disputes based on such trivial things. Hence, every little aspect, every little detail needs to be captured in the contract. And in order to understand how your client or the stakeholder would want the payment to be made, you need to sit down with them and you need to ask them this question. The second is tranches or lump sum. So the payment can either be made in installments or it could be a one-time lump sum payment. Again, this is also something which needs to be captured in the contract, because a contract is based on the meeting of minds, and these minds should meet at each and every step. So if I think I am supposed to pay you 1,000 rupees in an installment of 500 and 500 each. So after I get my chairs, I give you only 500 rupees and you think I haven't paid. Now, such miscommunication should not happen. The contract should have all the bases covered. And hence, you should ask your stakeholder whether they want payment in tranches, whether they want the payment in lump sum, whether it would be a one-time payment, if it is in tranches and how many tranches, etc. So all these finer details need to be captured in the contract. The third question with regard to payment, which you need to ask, is advance or arrears. So a lot of time what happens is that the customer is going to pay maybe 10% advance to the vendor. The vendor, after receiving this advance, is going to start working on the product or the service, and then they would deliver this product or service to them, and after that the rest of the money would be paid. The other would be where the money would be paid after all the chairs or all the products have been delivered. So you need to ask whether the payment has to be made in advance, whether there would be an area payment. If there is an area payment, is there a particular date by which you would require the payment? Or if you are drafting from the vendor's side, you would also need to mention there by which date they need to make the payment. Hence, you need to capture these tiny details in the contract, and you need to ask your client or your relevant stakeholder what exactly would be the modalities of payment. Also, another important thing is the currency. Now, so you need to again mention that there. If it's $100, you mention $100. If it's 1,000 rupees, you mention 1,000 rupees. You should always mention the currency before you mention the figures, because otherwise, again, this would lead to a scope for confusion. One important thing you should keep in mind is a contract is made so as to eliminate the scope of confusion. Every tiny detail needs to be captured in writing so that later on no disputes arise. And that is exactly why these questions become pertinent or relevant, and you need to ask them from your clients. Now, the next question would be regard to incidental services or additional services. Now, an incidental services is nothing more than an additional service. For example, if I am supplying a software to you, now, would that include the maintenance of such software? Would that also include, for example, a software is not working or there is a flaw in it? Now, would I come and would I repair that? Would that also be included in the contract? So such things need to be captured in the contract, because I would say, yes, I am going to supply this contract to you. For example, I take the subscription of a legal tech product. Now, I pay the company the subscription fee, the company gives me the legal tech product. Maybe after 2 weeks, one day the internet is down and there's some problem, there's some link broken, and I'm not able to access what I got the product for. Whom do I turn to help? Will the legal tech vendor be helping me out with the maintenance? And that's something which you need to capture in the contract, because if that's not clearly written, they may come to you later on and say that, no, we didn't agree to maintaining it. So we are not going to come here and we are not going to repair it. We are not going to come here and check if it's running properly. And when you are a big company, maintenance services become really important. And hence you need to not only mention it as a wide term, like I would be providing you maintenance services, but you also need to capture what all kinds of maintenance services would be included. Now, the next question would be with regard to delivery. So in a services or a goods contract, delivery becomes very important. So the first thing is mode of delivery. Now, would it be a physical delivery? Would it, if it's a software, then obviously you cannot really, physically bring a good and deliver it. You will send some people who would install this software, who would actually take care of your IT, who are going to make sure that the software runs on your servers. So these kind of tiny details you would need to capture in your contract. Now, second is, would the cost of delivery be added to the final cost, or would it be charged over and above? So a lot of times the vendor would say that maybe INR 1,000 is the charge for the making of chairs and the delivery of chairs. What about the cost we incurred when we are delivering the chairs to you? So maybe the charge of the truck which brought the chairs to you, the charge of the labor who brought the chairs to you, etc., would have to be borne by you over and above the cost of the total cost of the payment that you are making for the chairs. Now, these modalities also need to be worked out. You need to understand whether the money you are spending is money spent only on the final product, or does it also include money spent on the additional services such as delivery. Now, this is also something which could give rise to disputes later on, and hence this needs to be worked out before you start to draft a contract. The next thing is delivery in tranches or one-time delivery. Again, the delivery can be maybe in installments. Maybe I give you 500 chairs in a month. Maybe I give you all 1,000 chairs at one point of time. How would the delivery be done? That is also something which you need to work out before you sit down to draft a contract. Now, the next thing that we come to is acceptance. And you also need to ask, how would the goods or services being delivered be accepted? The mode of acceptance needs to be decided beforehand so that this does not give rise to any dispute later on. Now, one of the most acceptable ways of accepting goods or services is quality check. Now, what normally happens is, for example, I will take the example of chairs. So if you are delivering 100 chairs to another party, what they are going to do is they're going to take the chairs, they're going to check the quality of the chairs, and if it is up to mark, or it is up to the mark of the pre-decided quality which you had discussed, then they would accept the chairs or the delivery, and then the payment would be released. Now, you need to have this in the contract, because otherwise you would think the moment I deliver the chairs, I'm entitled to a payment. The customer would think that no, until and unless the chairs which have been delivered to me pass the quality check, the vendor is not entitled to payment. Hence, there has to be meeting of minds. You need to put how are the goods and services accepted in the contract beforehand, and then you need to proceed in pursuance of it. Therefore, you need to ask your client or your relevant stakeholder, what is the mode of acceptance? And if there, for example, there could be a waiting period. For example, the customer cannot really hold on the acceptance for an extremely long time. So you need to put in a reasonable period of time. For example, if the goods are not accepted within 30 days of delivery, then they would be deemed to be accepted. So something of that sort needs to be there. And such modalities, you need to talk to your client or your relevant stakeholder and work it out with them. Now, payment after acceptance. This is also something that's very important, as we talked about in the payment clause as well. So would the payment be made after the goods are accepted? Would the payment be made the moment the delivery is done? Or would the payment be made in tranches? So this is also something which you need to ask your client and then capture it accordingly in the contract. Now, the next thing which is very important is intellectual property. So, is there any IP being exchanged or shared? So you need to know whether any intellectual property is being exchanged or shared before you actually put in an intellectual property clause. So normally what happens is people go to the internet, they pick up templates from there, they see what are the core operational clauses or the boilerplate clauses, and then they maybe form a draft out of that. Now, for example, if you were drafting a contract for delivery of chairs and there was no intellectual property involved in this, and you still put an intellectual property clause in your contract just because you saw it in some template. Now, that is not how things work. So you should not really be doing that. And you should actually ask your client or your stakeholder whether any intellectual property is being exchanged or shared. Now, what you need to keep in mind here is that, for example, if you are entering into a contract with a supplier for the sale of the goods manufactured by you. Now, these goods may have the logo of your company on that. Now, that too is an intellectual property. So you also need to apply your mind. So a lot of time, the client or the stakeholder will not know that the logo would also constitute intellectual property. Do not ask something as simple as, is there any IP being exchanged? Ask about the nature of goods which are being transferred. That will give you an idea. Ask about how are they being transferred. Ask about what would they be used for. And these things are actually going to give you, the lawyer, an idea whether any intellectual property is being exchanged or not. You can also ask them pointed questions such as, would any logo be exchanged? Would the company name be displayed anywhere? Would any patent designs be exchanged, etc.? That again would give you an idea of whether any intellectual property is being shared or exchanged. And then you can take an informed decision and build a clause around it to protect your company's or your client's IP. Now, the last clause I want to cover here is confidential information. So now you must have seen in a lot of templates that confidential information is a separate clause. What if your client is not sharing any confidential information, like a simple contract like delivery of chairs? There's no confidential information being shared. Would you still want to put that clause in? Because remember, it's not only the drafting where your work ends. You need to take the contract to the end of the life cycle, which is the negotiation and acceptance. So when you go to the negotiation table and the opposite party asks you, what is the confidential information clause doing here? There was no confidential information which got exchanged. What would your answer be? Hence, it's important to know whether any confidential information is being exchanged before you put in a confidential information clause. How would you know that? Firstly, you can ask a pointed question to the client or the stakeholder. Secondly, ask them, what is the information you are sharing with the vendor? And amongst that, is there any information which is actually pertinent or relevant to the business you are doing? Assess on your own, ask the client, figure out, make a holistic determination, and then put in the clause. Do not just blindly copy paste the clause from anywhere. Thank you. Hopefully you like the presentation.